Okay, YouTubers, space detectives, space geeks, and pareidolia police. Today we are having another quick game of Interplanetary I Spy going on here in Gale Crater with the Curiosity Rover, and today we're looking at some very recent images, in fact, and these are from Sol 2633. There's two images mainly to look at, but really you need to look at the whole set here. And what you need to do is you go on the main page. I'll have links to these anyway. But you have to put 2633 in both of these boxes here, and then you have to select the mass camera here, tick that little box, and I usually select 100 images per page, otherwise it's a pain in the ass. And you go to the bottom of the page and there's a bunch of pukey brown coloured ones here, and then you go to the next page and there's another bunch of pukey brown coloured ones here, and those are the ones to look at. Now there's also lots of other interesting stuff in this set as well, but I'm not going to go over all of that today because we'll be here all day. But the ones to go for, as usual, are the colour ones, because they do contain more information, even though they're a bit downgraded. They're not terrible. These aren't too bad. They're not as bad as some. It does depend upon the angle of the light and what time of day they were taken, and how recent the most recent dust storm was on Mars, because that can often taint the images and make them very dull and muddy looking, even more so. So let's crack on with it. Now, let me show you the things I found first. Now, you would have seen one of these on the cover, which probably would be this one. And this was cool. Now, this, to me, looks like some kind of fossil. I put this up on Facebook the other day. Now, these images were literally taken, let me see, on the 2nd of the 1st, 2020. So these are literally almost the first set of images taken this year. And basically, they're pretty good and quite strange. There's lots of kind of rocks lying around, but what look like fossils in between them as well, and lots of fragments of stuff. As usual, the ground is pretty flat in this particular area, right in front of the rover, and it's looking right down in front of it, over an area covering about 10 meters. But this particular one's really close up to the rover, so this area only probably covers about 1 or 2 meters square, so it's not very big. This is quite small, whereas this one is slightly further back. And so what I did, I basically made some gigapans. I'll show you those in a minute, and that gives us an idea of scale. So we try and work out how big these things are. But this is the main thing I wanted to show you, and I don't really know what to call this. It looks like some kind of fossil. You can see in the raw image here, we've got these strange leg shapes. And then when I started looking at it a bit more, I thought, hang on a minute, is that an arm and a head? Let me draw around it. Now, this is what I'm seeing. You may see it slightly differently, but either way, whether I've got this slightly wrong or not, it's very interesting. And some people have said it looks a bit like a carving, although to me it looks far too sort of contorted to be a carving of an animal. This looks more like an animal that's died, mummified, and then fossilized, and the limbs have kind of eroded away from the high winds on Mars. Even though the air pressure isn't very high, it's still enough to erode them. What I'm seeing here is a head here, with an eye here, and a nose here, a mouth here. The head kind of comes around, the face kind of comes around like that. I'm not sure what this thing is here. We've got this rather strange thing going on here, which I'm not sure about. These could be limbs, I don't know, which are kind of twisted up, I don't know. These down here do look like limbs. This one here, and this one here. These look like eroded limbs, and they sort of join onto the back of it here. The thing comes up, obviously. But we've got these strange details in here, which I can't quite work out. I'll try and draw around them a little bit more carefully for you, just to illustrate what I mean. Let's get in a bit closer. Now, you've got to kind of sit back a little bit and not get really close with these, because, there we are, because they don't get any sharper when you zoom right in. But we have these lines here, and this is what caught my eye, this line coming round. There's another one coming round here, which joins onto that one, and this part comes round. This thing kind of goes like this. This part here may or may not be part of it. Some of this may actually be material that's fossilized with it. In other words, hardened clay, sedimentary clay. So we may be seeing other things fossilized together with it, like this. May not be part of it, but it probably is. Don't know. That's weird. But if I get rid of those lines, you can see them pretty clearly, actually, even in the raw image. You can see those strange shapes. Now, that's what initially led me to believe this might be a carving, and some kind of stylized carving of a strange animal, like a dog or a cat, or it doesn't look like a cat. It doesn't really look like a dog either. That's the problem. I don't know what it is. I don't really know what it represents. It's some kind of strange creature. Whether it's fossilized or carved, we still don't know which. And we don't know what type of animal it actually represents. We can only really kind of guess as to what this may be, because it doesn't quite conform to animals we see on Earth, at least none that I can think of offhand. But if we go in close, you can actually see the eye quite clearly. It's there. And there's nose detail. In fact, let's go in really close. You can actually see two nostrils, one here and one here. And you can see the other eye there, and the eyebrow, which kind of matches up with this eye and this eyebrow. Let's go back out. The face to me almost looked a bit like a seal or something like that, or a sea lion. It's got a sort of marine mammal-esque type shape to it. But of course, we have no idea about all the animals on Mars. I've found many examples of fossilized creatures on Mars from all the animal groups so far, including mainly things like reptiles and things like that, but also what look like mammals and cats and dogs and lots of apes and small, tiny little monkey type skulls all over the place. Loads and loads of different things. Now, this doesn't look like any of those, so this is something new. And it also occurred to me that the thing next to it is rather strange as well. There's what this thing here, I don't know what that is. It's so kind of eroded and pitted. That may just be mud and rock, who knows. And we got this rather strange object here. Okay, now I don't know what that represents either. It may just be a rock, of course. But even in the raw image, if you look at it, you can actually see that eye just here. See the eye? You can see the nose there, and you can see the other eye there, if you look carefully. So it's all there. I had to darken it quite a lot because the images are quite bright, and I think this was probably taken near to the sort of, I would say near midday, about 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, sun angle wise. So the shadows aren't too long, so we don't have a great deal of shadow. So the thing to do when you have images which are this bright is to really play with the contrast and darken it down like I've done here, and then these details then jump out at you. So answers on the postcard with that one. Don't know what it is. It's strange, but this is Mars. We should always expect strange things on Mars. Not everything on Mars was that similar to what we have down here. A lot of this stuff is so weird, we probably don't even recognise half the stuff we're looking at because we've never seen anything of the like before. That is part of the problem. And we can only really compare it to other fossils and other things that people like me have found and other researchers have found, and then try and kind of triangulate what sort of thing we're looking at and compare it to the others that have been found and see whether it kind of matches up anything else. Right, the other thing I spotted was this. Now, this looks really big, but it's not. This is much closer to the rover. This is about a human-sized kind of skull, and it looks fossilized. Now, it's broken and it's eroded, and there are parts missing from it. Now, what I think's happened here is this is a skull of some kind of, it looks almost kind of reptilian. Now, it's a bit hard to get your head around this initially because it just does look like a rock that's head-shaped. But if you look carefully, this has been enhanced. I've brightened this, but not much. I've brightened it up quite a lot and added a little bit of contrast, and I've sharpened it a bit. And actually, let me show you the raw image of this in the folder, just to prove that it's real. It's down here somewhere. There's the raw clip, and it's next to this quite large rock here. Now, this hasn't been enlarged much. It's just been clipped out. So you can see I haven't enhanced it much. I've just kind of brightened it up. Let's go back to that. It is better to see this one because you can see more detail. What I've done is I've sharpened it, and what's happened there, you can actually now see the mouth here. Now this looks like a mouth here. Okay, it's pretty crude, and a lot of it seems to be jammed up with sediment. This, I think, is an eye here. Okay, and this is the remains of what would the nose, the nasal cavity here. It would have been a nasal cavity like that. I can even see what looks like a nostril here and a nostril there. Okay, if this is reptilian, like some of them are, then that would kind of fit a reptilian kind of morphology. And we have very small teeth. We have quite a large mouth that comes back to about here. And if you look carefully, you can see teeth here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, possibly 9, possibly 10 or 11. Those are a bit vague there. So the mouth comes to about there, and you've got teeth, although very small teeth. These are not mammalian teeth at all. These aren't designed for eating vegetable material, so this probably was not a vegetarian. Although you can't, there's not really enough detail to tell, really. You need to see a lot more of the teeth to actually work that out for sure. But there we have it, and it seems to have rather a large ear-shaped kind of thing going on here. There's the ear, and a lobe coming right down like that. So we've got an ear, we've got an eye. The eye's weird, and it's all kind of... See, I thought initially that this was a completely separate kind of fossil here of something else. It may well be, I could be wrong on this. But the fact that we have a mouth with teeth in it here, and the remains of a nasal cavity there, led me to believe that that's probably an eye, and what we have is our actual eyelids. Hang on a minute. Let's do that a minute. Right, okay. Now, the problem with fossils on Mars is we have lots of sticky sulfuric sand, which is very sticky and sticks to stuff. So a lot of this stuff may be extraneous material that's stuck to it, like this here. We've got this detail here. Now, this to me looks like a bit of mud that was attached to it, and it's kind of broken away. I don't think that's actually part of the skull, and I would imagine that this part, nose part, would have stuck out more like this, and that the other eye would be here, just out of shot. Okay, but if we look at the eye detail, it's very strange that this looks like an eyelid here, and that's the upper eyelid there, and that's the lower one. So it's a very small, almost chameleon looking type eye, and it's actually similar to some of the others that I've found in shape. And I would imagine also, let's get rid of that, I'd imagine also that this skull may have actually come up further like this, or even further back like that, and may not have been kind of sheared off here. This looks like it's broken off here. In fact, some of these fragments on the ground may be something to do with that, and the skull seems to be partly broken and split. There's also a rather strange little, what looks like a strange little skull here, with teeth there, mouth, and these rather strange slit-like eyes, almost like a little helmet. But that could just be a coincidence. There's not really enough detail in that to actually say either way. Whether that's anything important or not, don't know. So, there we are. I mean, is that a reptilian skull? It looks like one to me, but it's not a brilliant example. There are much better ones that I've found. But what's unusual about this is the huge ear. Look at this ear. It comes right up like that, and we've got the inner part of the ear there, and a quite prominent lobe here with something on it. Now, bear in mind that some of the quasi-reptilian looking Martian skulls and remains that I found so far, not all of them look like reptilian, many of them don't. A lot of them look human or humanoid-ish. A lot of them have earrings, so this may actually be a fossilised ear stud or something just there, because others have been found with them. In fact, what I'll do, if I can remember, I'll try and put some in at the end of the video for you to have a look at. Yeah, a lot of these statues or even mummified or fossilized skulls seem to have ears with earrings, which I find very interesting. Okay, so there we are, that was that. I'll quickly show you the folder. Actually, there are a couple of other things I want to show you. Now, these are inconclusive, but still interesting, I think. There was this thing. Now, this looked to me like an animal with a mouth kind of hanging down here, but I don't think it is. I think it's just a strange rock with something strange kind of fossilized into it here, which is broken off. And unfortunately, there's not enough of it intact to work out what it was. But what I found interesting about this, let's show you the enhanced version, was this part here. We have an arm just here. See that? Like an arm shape? Like a little arm or almost like a finger or something. So there's some weird stuff going on with these rocks, and a lot of them got little fossils in them. They're not necessarily big fossils, they're sort of lots of small fossils kind of lumped together. So that was weird. In fact, let me quickly put it in there, and I'll show you what I mean with that. In fact, I did turn it up the other way and have a look at it the other way around. It still didn't make a lot of sense. But what I mean with this, basically, is that we have this structure coming around here, and we have an arm here, which comes around like that. And we have what looks like a joint to it there. Almost like a finger, actually. So, what the hell's that? That is really weird. So, I mean, that could be some kind of fossilized small creature in there. No idea what it is, but interesting anyway. So there's a lot of these similar rocks with lots of little things kind of encrusted and fossilized into them, which may or may not be actual fossils, a lot of them. But they're very interesting nonetheless. There was one or two other things that caught my eye. There was this thing which I thought was weird. Now this is probably just a rock, but it's got a hole in it, and you can see the light-coloured rock behind showing through. That's a hole. Now there have been other ones similar to this found, so this isn't unheard of in the area. But this may not actually be rock. It may be some other type of material. Just because it's rock coloured doesn't mean it's rock. Rather strange. Don't really know what to make of that. It's got a weird sort of keyhole-shaped thing in it, and it's kind of split off. There's lots of weird stuff and fragments like this in the area, and I do recommend, if any of you are into making gigapans, that you make a gigapan with this set like I've done here. I'll show you a bit of one of those now very quickly, because it really helps understand the scale of some of these things. Now, these turned out quite big, so what I did, I split them into two. Okay, so this is only half of the images. But it makes it a little bit easier to navigate when you've got lots of stuff to look at. Here's that thing. So here's the rover, and you can see down here that that skull thing, the reptoid thing, is not that big. In fact, I would say it's about 6 inches, possibly 5. Somewhere between 5 and 7 or 8. Who's to say exactly? It's not very far away from the rover. This is really close up. That other thing is in the other half of the gigapan. Oh no, it isn't. There it is, just there. It's up here. So you've got these 3 big rocks here, go directly above this one here, and you'll see that fossilized creature thing, whatever it is. There it is, just there. Okay, so it's a bit further away, but it's actually probably about the same size as this skull. It's just further away, and a bit vague because it's sort of almost bleached out by the sun by the looks of it. But some of these things look really odd, including this thing behind it. This thing, whatever that is, I mean, it's probably just a rock, but it's got some very straight parts to it. Very straight indeed. So I've yet to actually fully examine everything in this gigapan, because there's loads of weird little fragments with weird textures and details that may be sort of fossilized worms and little creatures, and some of them may have been actual marine fossils. There's this weird thing here which almost looks like a hand or something. I don't know what that is. That is really weird. So that's about it really. If I find anything else that is significant or I think may be worth looking at, I will put it in at the end of the video in a minute. But a lot of these could be fossils, and some of it does look like fossilized coral and stuff like that. There's this weird thing here which looks like it may have been a skull that's all completely smashed. Just here, with 2 eye sockets, one here, one there, nostrils, mouth. But it's so broken up and fragmented that it's impossible to say with any assurance. But there's loads and loads of strange fragments here, and some of them look really kind of weird and are really hard to get your head round. But that was the main one really, was the animal one here. There it is. There you can see it. Completely raw this, I haven't enhanced this in any way. You can see those weird shapes in there. So the question is whether that is a carving or an actual fossil. So thanks for watching, everybody. Do come along to my group on Facebook if you haven't joined up already. It's called Mars Magazine. ArtAlienTV Mars Magazine, in fact, it's called. So do come along, and you may see some of these things before they get published on YouTube, and like this thing here, which I'll be doing in my next video. I've called this the Primoid. Now this is not far from where we're looking today, and was actually spotted like only yesterday or the day before, and basically I'll be doing a video about that coming up very soon. So if you want to see stuff before it gets published on YouTube, come to ArtAlienTV Mars Magazine. Check out my channel and channel playlists. There's loads and loads of stuff to see here, including buildings and things that look like objects like mobile phones and stuff. That may not be, of course. There's loads and loads of fossils and weird figurines and vehicles and all sorts. So if you're new to this channel, do check out my playlists. There are over 80 of them, covering every single aspect of the things that have been found on Mars, especially from the Curiosity Rover, since it started in 2012. Okay, so do come along. Thanks for watching, everybody. Clips coming up now.